Hello, everybody, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Thursday, the 9th of October. Glad to see you. Before I begin, I just want to say I apologize. There will not be a Church at Home for Friday, Sunday, Monday, or probably Tuesday. I am heading off to Halifax tomorrow. I leave Brandon later on today to go to Winnipeg because we have to be at the airport for 6 a.m. on Friday, and heading to Halifax to do a wedding for a parishioner of mine from when I was at St. James Armdale in Halifax. And of course, Thanksgiving weekend, and we're flying home Monday. Thanksgiving won't be home till late in the evening. So I will not have time, probably, to do a church at home. Who knows? I'll be taking my iPad with me and I might be inspired while I'm there and figure out how to upload a video, but probably not. So there won't be church at home until next Wednesday, most likely, and there won't be a gospel on the go for Sunday. I just don't have the time, and I apologize. Usually I try to make sure I carve out time to do this. This is like my hobby. This isn't my work. This is what I do for fun. And I just have, sorry, folks, but I will be back next Wednesday. Yesterday, I was doing some work. A friend of mine from Halifax, who I'm hoping I will see on Sunday at church, Jason, had asked me to be a reference for him for some program, like a study, a graduate study program he's entering. And he sent me a couple of things, his resume, his couple of sermons he's written. And it got me thinking, because I haven't seen Jason in a really long time. But it was great to hear from him, and I'm pleased to be his reference. Um, but when you read someone's writing, it takes you to a place that hearing them speak doesn't, and it's a good place. Like, I mean, it's just a nuance, right? One aspect of them. And as I was reading his sermons, I could picture him because he's preaching them from the church, that the pulpit that I stood in, 6 years ago. So I'm listening as I'm reading, I'm listening, I'm hearing his voice, and I'm seeing him, and I'm recognizing how amazingly Jason is able to put himself into the words he's written. And that's important because what he's talking about in the one sermon is, he's talking about a passage, I think it's from John chapter 6, verses 56 to 59. He just says, Jesus speaks, eating, drinking, and living, 6:56 to 59. I think it's from the Gospel of John. And he's talking about the words. And I have never been in my preaching, not very often anyway, the kind of person who gets too much into the detail about the Greek or the Hebrew and things like that. Never been my bailiwick. I could do it, take a lot of time to study it, but I've never felt like it helps me get deeper into what I'm trying to say. But for some people, they can. And in this case, Jason absolutely nails something. And I wanted to talk to you about this. He says here, where is, okay, here. Just, I apologize, Jason, if you're seeing this. I'm using this without asking you, but I hope you'll forgive me. He says here, I'm just going to read one paragraph he's got written here. The scene occurs in a synagogue in Capernaum. As is typical in John, one finds an intra-Jewish, often antagonistic debate about how Jesus relates to the parent tradition. In this case, the contest is between Moses and Jesus, and the subject has to do with who's eating what and toward what end. Verse 56 uses an unusual word for eating, trogo. The usual word is estheo, whose connotation is crunching or gnawing, the kind of thing one does when eating a turkey leg at the fair or maybe quail in the wilderness. I love this because he's right, like estheo, the word for chewing, like for eating. And in this case, Jesus' words use the word trogo. And it's not so much about what Greek word Jesus is using here, it's more about the implication of it. When we think about being spiritually nourished, and in Christian terms, especially for the liturgical traditions, the sacramental traditions, we talk about the Eucharist, the communion service, when we go and receive the bread and wine, the body and blood of Christ. And for lots of people, that's a very uncomfortable image, this idea. Like, Christians get, when people want to sort of rile us up and everything, they'll accuse us of being cannibals because we ate the body of Jesus. Well, okay, that's a debate for another day. It's kind of a silly one, anyway. But the idea is that we feast on Jesus. We receive the body and blood of Christ into ourselves, And that then is a spiritual nourishment for us. And Jason goes on in his sermon to talk about what that means. And I think he's got a really good point that when we go forward and what we do, at least in the traditions that I know, Roman Catholic, Anglican, Lutheran, when we receive communion, we do so in a very genteel manner. We walk up to the altar rail, we may kneel or stand, and we put out our hands, and the priest or whoever's administering puts the piece of bread that often looks like a piece of paper and sort of tastes that way too, in our hands, and then we put it in our mouth, and then the wine comes and we take the tiniest little sip, or we just touch the cup or whatever it is that we do, and then we say a prayer, wait for the next person. Sort of the etiquette of that I was taught when you're receiving communion is that you don't leave the communion rail until the person beside you has received. So it's not like a drive-through, you eat and run thing. You receive, you pray a little bit, you wait till the person beside you has received, and then you walk away, and then they pause until that person beside them, and So it's a very genteel, very calm, very very organized looking thing. But if we actually take that word and look at what Jason has presented here, trogo, whose connotation is crunching or gnawing, whole different way of looking at it. And it may make people a little queasy or feel a little squirmy about this, because I think he's right. When we go forward to receive communion in church, it isn't meant to simply, it is lovely that we do so in a way that is gentle and not raucous, and it's a moment of deep spirituality. It is a moment of great sincerity, a moment when we should be going forward with our hearts and minds and our bodies at one, with humility and grace and open expectation, because we are about to receive the body and blood of Christ. We are about to participate in the sacrifice that Christ made for us. We are about to receive the very gifts, the very elements, the body and blood that Jesus gave so that we could have eternal life, that we could be forgiven our sins, that when we receive, we are reminded that when we walk back to our pew or the chair, if you don't know what a pew is, that big long wooden thing, the bench, when we go back to where we were before communion, we go back different. We go back as people who are now changed somehow because of what we have just participated in. And while that on the outside, the outward form looks very genteel, as I said, very, very put together, on the inside, should it be? Should the receiving of the body and blood of Christ be something genteel and put together? Or should on the inside that be a gnawing, a real, what do you call it, trogo? Should that not be like a gnawing, like the turkey leg at the fair or the quail in the wilderness? When we go back from communion and we sit in our pews, we have been transformed by the very presence of the sacrament. Sacrament being an outward and visible sign of an inward and spiritual grace. So the outward visible sign is the blood, the body and blood, the bread and the wine that we have received, and the body through which we receive it, the posture, all of those things that go together to make the moment sacramental. But what's happening to us inward? Where is this? The sacramental part is the inward part. That was what we see, the outward and visible sign of the inward and spiritual grace. I don't know about you, but in my life, grace has not often been an easy thing. Grace can be like being out on a boat being tossed about. Grace can be like hanging on to that zipline cord for your life. Realizing, of course, at the same time that the captain who's manning the ship that you're on, that's tossing back and forth and to and fro, is completely in control. Even though the waves are tossing you, the captain is good at what he's doing or she's doing, and they will get you safely back into harbor. That zip line that you're flying along on, you sometimes forget that you've got a harness, that you're not going to fall. You aren't in peril. It just feels like it. And sometimes, most often in my life, Those periods of grace have come in times when I have felt like I'm in peril, when I am gnawing on that inward and spiritual thing, when I'm like, oh, I don't know, or I'm thinking about it and I'm fighting with it and I'm trying to figure out how to do this. What if indeed a sacrament isn't a clean, domesticated, beautiful thing like it looks like on the outward, invisible side, but inside is trogo. Inside is the gnawing on that turkey leg or the quail's legs in the wilderness. What if, when we receive grace, we start to recognize that the true grace of the sacrament comes not just simply in the actual action of the sacrament, in the receiving of the body and blood of Christ, but in what we do with it when it comes, how we wrestle with that grace, how we allow that grace to get us through the difficult times that sacrament is indeed getting us through. What if it isn't meant to be all clean and tidy and beautiful like it often looks like on the outside, but maybe it's about how we deal with it on the inside? I don't know. It's just a first thought. I just before I recorded this, I just read that sermon, and he's got me thinking. So, Jason, thank you so much, and I will thank you in person when I see you on Sunday, if indeed I do. But for all of you who are watching, I encourage you for the next couple of days until I get back to wrestle with that sacramental thing. Is the sacrament meant to be so clean and gentle, or is when you participate in the inward and spiritual, the stuff that people can't see, isn't that grace that comes in the sacrament, shouldn't it be actually be something that we have to gnaw on, that we might have to fight with a little bit? We have to put some effort into it. I think I'm going to be gnawing on this one for quite a while. So thank you, Jason, for that. Have a great day. And again, I feel horrible that I won't be around with you till next Wednesday. But I think I need to take the break. I think I need this time. So have a happy Thanksgiving. God bless you all. And I will be back next week. God bless.